Hello, this is Wmpyr here to once again talk about Professor Bram Frank's LLC knives and why I'm a big fan and believer in these knives. But first of all, one of the things that I have to tell you guys is that these knives seem controversial for some reason. People have a problem with them. I don't have a problem, obviously, with these knives, and to me, it's not controversial. And this is not the reason why I have his knives. Is because it's controversial. That's kind of cool. I'm gonna have these knives, and it's like no. That is not the reason why. The reason I have these knives is because they make sense to me. They make absolute sense. And part of that is probably because he comes from a Filipino martial arts background. I come from a Filipino martial arts background. And actually, it just so happens to be that Professor Bram Frank, the designer of the LLC, the designer, the inventor, Professor Bram Frank comes from modern Arnis, which is the Presas brothers. And my teacher's teacher learned under both Professor Remy Presas and Ernesto Presas, so actually both brothers. So we actually come from the same lineage, and maybe that's why it makes sense. I don't know, but to me, it's like if you do Filipino martial arts and you want a tactical knife, then look no further. This is it. So in the training that we do in Filipino martial arts, we have the long stick, the medium stick, and the short stick. And this would fall into the short stick when you're using this guy closed. And that is the big problem that everyone seems to have, is using this closed. And for me, it's like, I'm using this closed. That's like, to me, I'm doing short stick skills. I don't see what the problem is. If I could take care of the situation like that, and that's easier to access. It's like if I have a sword on my back, right, and I have a knife right here, and this dude suddenly pops up and is aggressive and is coming at me. I don't have the time to take out the long sword, which is more damaging, more powerful. I don't have the time. The knife comes out. I mean, to me, it's like that. It's just quicker, easier to access it. I'm not saying that it's superior to the sword. No. But in that situation, boom, it's right there. So I'd rather use that than zero. Or I'd rather use that than try to get this out and I don't make it and I get attacked and then, I sustained some severe damage that way because I was too busy trying to draw the sword and it was the wrong time to do so. So to me, it's that. It's really simple. I don't know. Or like if I had a sword, right, and I had the scabbard, or the knife and a sheath, right? So and what? So it's like, God forbid I use the sheath. So I do this and I do that. Oh no, he used the sheath. Is that what that is? I don't understand. In my style of Filipino martial arts, it's taught to be resourceful. We milk everything because Filipinos are historically they one of the best guerrilla warfare fighters on the planet. Guerrilla warfare means unconventional combat, and in order to survive that kind of warfare, you got to milk everything that you got. The more resourceful you are, the more that is to your advantage. So using this in the closed position, yeah, that's part of this, And I've said it to you guys, the Heaven 6 technique that we do, it's not just this. I'm using forearms, I'm using elbows, even the stance. I will use the stance to my advantage. I'm milking everything. So to me, this is part of Filipino martial arts. This knife, Professor Bram Frank has said it many times. He said, this is Filipino martial arts in the palm of your hand. He said, this is me, his experience with the martial arts, and most of that is Filipino martial arts. He has some Jeet Kune Do in there, some Wing Chun in there, and some other stuff. But this is Filipino martial arts in your hands right there. It makes sense to me. Use it closed, use it open, you know, and even in the halfway position, use this too. Use everything. So that's the way that I see it. But yeah, people think that it's a joke to use this thing closed, and you know, to me, if someone's like, okay, this guy attacks me, now I'm gonna kill him. That, to me, is more of a joke. Because I'm not going to deny that there's never a situation like that. Of course. However, we cannot ignore percentage. And that is one of the most important things in martial arts, is you cannot ignore percentage. Okay? And I don't care if you're a sport fighter and you go, in sport, none of this applies. No, the sport is like the blueprint. So if you can't even do sport, how are you going to do real life, is the way I see it. But what you have to do is you have to look at percentage, and from there you prioritize. Because if not, you have a bunch of techniques, a bunch of moves, a bunch of strategies, maybe tactics, and they're in just random chaotic order. How do you know when to use what? This is huge. And you go, well, my common sense, or just depending on the situation. Those are all, you don't have an answer. You really don't. You're going to rely on your experience and your know-how, and hopefully you're thinking straight at the time, and good luck with all that. And that's even considering that what's really going on 100% of the time right away, which you won't. I mean, look at any police officer, and when they get to a scene, they have to figure out what is happening. And that's going to be the same for you in a real life situation. You're going to go, what the hell is going on here? So you need to figure this stuff out, and you need to prioritize. And when you prioritize things, percentage cannot be ignored. So, people always talk about gross motor skills versus fine motor skills. This is a lot deeper than that. It's not just that. And like, for example, you can say, fine motor skill is not going to work. Would you consider Heaven 6 a fine motor skill? I would consider it. But you know what? Don't tell me that I can't do it, because, you don't know me. You really don't know me. And in a real life situation, that kind of stuff depends on you, on the individual. How much practice have you put in? How comfortable you are with it? What kind of natural abilities do you have? Things like that. For me, Heaven 6 is something that I fell in love with that move back in 1990. And ever since, I'm still in love with that move. And I've been practicing it this whole time. So for me, it's like, it's so natural. It's like drinking water. It's like opening a door. I don't think about it. I could do it in my sleep, So anyway, what I'm trying to say, right? What I'm trying to say here is that when you prioritize, I'm not just talking about techniques. I'm talking about prioritize also situations, right? So when is this situation where, all right, let's go to death, right? When is that situation? When is that situation? And that percentage, like I said, is very low. You have to understand that. Maybe it's not for you. There's all kinds of people. Maybe you live in a war zone, So then, in your case, Maybe not, but that's not, maybe the opponent's not the problem. Maybe the problem is you need to get out of there. Okay. So anyway, the percentage of a situation where I just take this out and use this is much higher than the percentage where I need this blade, you know, to take care of what's up. I remember the situation where it was past midnight and I was moving from apartment to apartment. And this was a new city. I'm not familiar with this place. I'm not familiar with this apartment complex. I had to get it last minute, so I got this place. And I'm unloading the stuff, and I'm dead tired. And like I said, it took a long while to drive there, and now I'm unloading and going up and down the stairs, and I'm super exhausted, but I want to finish this up. All right, and I'm doing this, and this guy comes up to me at this new apartment, and he's super aggressive, and clearly the dude is like drunk, right? Because he's asking me, where is the where is the trash, the dumpster, right? And I'm like, I just got here, I don't know, right? And the guy just keeps harassing me about it, and he's getting angry that I don't know where the dumpster is, and I'm like, I'm sorry, dude, I just got here, I don't know, I'm new here, and that's not working, and he's getting hostile, and he's coming closer and closer, and I remember I'm trying to get stuff out from this U-Haul, so I'm inside the thing. So there's no way to run because I'm inside the back part of the U-Haul and my stuff's there. And this guy is approaching me and he's about to come in. And I'm trying to drag stuff out. So I'm crouched, like in a sitting position. And he's already coming close. And I'm like, oh, whoa, like you stay right there, And I'm telling him like, you need to back off, sir. And I'm not being a jerk either, but it just came to this point of hostility that this guy brought on, and at that point I was trying to diffuse it, but now I have to. He's not listening, so now I have to give commands where it's stronger and more aggressive, and I'm saying you need to back off right now, like that, and hopefully he'll listen to that because the soft stuff didn't work. And at this point, I take out my knife and the blade is out and everything. And it was one of those knives that it could wave. So click, it's already out. The blade's out and everything. And I'm going, oh man, I don't want to hurt this guy, but if he comes and he's aggressive, then I'm not just going to sit there. So I'm going to protect myself. And I don't know this guy, I don't know if he has a weapon. So anyway, mine's out. So I'm ready in case that happens. I would like to just, if it's going to get physical, just kick him off of me and that's it. And hopefully he's never seen anything like that. And he's like, damn, this guy does martial arts or something. And he's going to back off like, whoa, I don't want to mess with that. Hopefully. But maybe that may not be enough, So then that kick would be, more so for show. It's not like I'm really trying to knock him out or something like that. You know what I mean? But, and then if he does come in, then I would have to try to really let him know and hurt him with a kick. But before that, to me, is more superficial. So look, you see what I'm saying? I'm trying to give him chances. I don't want to go and just drop the atomic bomb. I don't believe in that, and I don't want to do that. If you don't have the skill, you can't stay calm in this situation, you don't know what's going on, then yeah, you might, that's all you got maybe, is you have to go all out and go crazy on the guy, because if you don't, they'll do it to you and it's kill or be killed. You're at that level, And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but in this particular situation, I was pretty calm. And I don't like the situation and I'm trying to find ways out of it and I'm trying to diffuse it, But so anyway, just in case it gets bad, the blade is out because I really didn't know if he was trying to set me up and there's other guys and they're ready to take all my stuff and mug me and who knows what and take everything and whatever. So I didn't know. I was inside the thing. I didn't know if there were two other guys waiting over here. I had no idea. So anyway, the blade is out. And at that point, I'm thinking, if he gets any closer, I'm going to heaven six the arms. I'm not thinking that I'm going to heaven six his neck and kill the guy. Of course not. Of course not. So look, all these layers that I'm talking about, and this is all happening quick, real fast, right? But also, like I said, I have a program in me where I know, like, my first line of defense is to kick the guy. Why not use my hands? Because I have shoes on. Shoes is better than my bare hands. So, like I said, everything's been thought out. I'm not saying it's the best program or whatever, but at least I know what's up and it's something that I'm comfortable with and I've used in many situations just like this, And so this guy wants to aggressively come to me, and at that point, I know if he's coming on, then I am heaven sixing his arms with the blade. And hopefully one slash and he'll go, whoa, and that's it, and he'll back off, right? But you never know. And luckily, I didn't have to do that, luckily. He left really upset, really angry, but, really, I'm sorry, I don't know where the dumpster is. You need to calm down, bro, but and once again, I don't even know if it was a hate crime, like he's just prejudiced and he's using that as an excuse to confront me. I don't know. And really, I'll never know. And it doesn't matter. But there's levels. Okay. Like I said, I don't go straight to, I could have just stabbed him in the neck and ended all this right at the beginning. Just click, boom, but be in huge trouble, So it's smart to go in layers. And people go, well, what if this? What if that? What if, and you are making a ton of assumptions. You have to feel the situation, because if not, you're making a guess. And doing this to his neck is not something that you want to guess about. Something like that's going to change his life, his family's life, my life, my family's life. Something like that has heavy, heavy consequences. I don't want to guess that. I don't want to go, well, I think he has two buddies around and they are going to do the worst to me, so I better just take him out now. That's a lot of assumptions right there. You know what I mean? So using this closed is the same idea as what I just described to you with I want to kick the guy first, or even before that, I'm verbally trying to diffuse the guy. It's the same thing. It is a force continuum. Using this closed and then using this open is now we go to less than lethal. If I had heaven sixed his arm, that's less than lethal force. And then if I went to the neck, that's lethal force. So it is levels. And that's what this is. And I'm actually surprised that people don't see it that way. And once again, the point where I need lethal force is a small percentage. So that's why Professor Bram Frank says that, hey, use this for self-defense. Don't use the blade for self-defense, because that percentage, he's not saying never. That percentage is so small. You're probably never, ever, ever going to be in that situation where you need the blade in self-defense. So might as well just say, use this closed, period. But in that 0.00001 percentage chance where you do need the blade, this makes sense because that's all it takes. It's already in your hand, right? It's already in your hand. because you're using this. And people have said, well, if this is in your hand, right? They go, oh, you have a knife in your hand. I'm taking out my firearm. Professor Bram Frank's answer to that, and I agree with him with this 100%. They're not going to see this. They're not going to, unless I go, here, look, do you see this? This is a knife. this is a knife. See, it's a folding knife. I'm going to use this against it. No, the guy's aggressive. He's hostile. They have a goal of some kind, whether it's to put a hurting on me, teach me a lesson, or whatever it is in their mind they think they need to do that involves this violence, right? They're busy doing that. I'm busy protecting myself. There's no, boom, this is in my hand. Look, can you tell what it is? Can you tell? Because boom, this is what's going to be happening. Can you see that? Can you tell what that is? How do you know it's not pepper spray? How do you know it's not a tactical flashlight? How do you know it's not my keys? Or something else? You don't. You're not going to be able to tell that, oh, he has a knife, You can assume that. Oh, why not assume, oh, it's a firearm? You can, Could be pepper spray, it could be a stun gun. You don't know. You don't know. That's what it is. You won't know. So it's not that I take this out and I'm like, and everyone sees it and they go, oh, he has a knife. Shoot the bastard. That's not the situation. I don't know. This thing, to me, makes a whole lot of sense. And I've only carried this when I felt like situations were really, really bad, where I was going to go to a place that I felt was like dangerous. Then I carried this, amongst other things. But yeah, that's when I carried this. This right here, I mean, this alone, like it doesn't even have to have this bramp here. If it just has this, which is it's weighted, this packs a powerful hammer fist alone. And the other reason why it's weighted is because when you do have the blade in your hand and it's weighted right here, rather than like a kukri, which has the weight on the blade, that's an excellent chopper. But when you're coming from a martial arts background, what's important to us? So our hands, our techniques. So, because we do stuff here, we use our hands. So by putting the weight here, it shifts the focus from the blade to the hand. So the blade's more like just a bonus, and I'm really just using my hand. So for me, I feel like I'm just using my normal techniques, and so that's another one of Professor Bram Frank's geniuses there, and he just knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's designed here, because it's not that the man is like, oh, he's so smart. He is. The guy's actually Mensa, but he's been doing this forever, since the beginning of tactical knives, when the birth of that, like when that word, I mean, of course, we've been making knives, and we've been making knives for combat purposes since early times, since the early ages of civilization. But no, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, the word tactical knife, when that came around, or since that time, he's been involved since the beginning. So for the people that, you like Emerson knives, or you like tactical knives, but you hate this, I kind of feel like, because this branches out and it influences all of that. So chances your favorite knife that you have, this may have direct or indirect connection, influence into the knife that is your favorite tactical knife. So for you to look at this and go, I hate that design, why? Guy's so stupid. If that's what you're thinking, then you really don't know what you're talking about, So this, I had someone, speaking of someone that doesn't know what they're talking about, someone saw this in my videos and they didn't understand that this is a training knife. This is the live version. Okay, so you see. And to make this, Professor Bram Frank was the first in the tactical knife industry to do this, to make this set so that you can train. I want to train for this here. This is as close as it gets and still safe. So the blade is completely safe, right? It doesn't stab, it doesn't poke, it doesn't hook, nothing. But the handle, everything else is identical. Everything else. He is the first guy to do this in the tactical knife industry for folding knife. And for him, that was just logic. People might think, oh, this is his greatest contribution. No, it's not. It's that. And for him, that was logical because he was doing that back when he was training in Filipino martial arts with Professor Remy Presas. When he was training with him, he was the guy making the sticks. And he thought, the sticks is really a representation of the sword, espada y daga. So then, why doesn't it look more sword-like? And so he started making training swords. So rather than the stick, because at some point the stick was a simple, it's convenient. So everyone in the Philippines was using the sticks. And then it got to the point where the sticks kind of surpassed the sword and no one was using the sword anymore. Not saying everybody, but it got to the point where the sticks became so popular and the sticks became so developed that it was like some parts, not everyone, but some parts, it was almost like the sword was forgotten. And you can go to some Filipino martial arts schools and they don't do blade training at all. Well, Professor Bram Frank was one of those guys that he was like, I like blades way more than the sticks. Can I focus more on the blades? And Professor Remy Presas said, for you, yes. You're going to be my blade guy. And so, Professor Bram Frank was making training blades, knives, and swords and stuff back in the day. So when he got into the tactical knife industry, and he was like, oh, okay, we're going to start making tactical knives. I have some designs. When he started doing that, to him, it was a no-brainer to do the exact same thing with the tactical knife. So he did. He said, this is so important. And to this day, he emphasizes this is so, so important. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I've seen some dudes on YouTube who have been on YouTube almost as long as I have teaching this stuff, the tactical knives and stuff. And I remember at least one guy, he said, our training is the most realistic you'll find. We don't use training knives. And that guy is a moron. He's a moron. And unfortunately, to this day, he's still famous and he's still one of the top tactical knife people, on YouTube and probably in the world today, that's sad. That is really sad that this idiot, that was his mentality. Now you can say, well, hopefully he's better now. Yeah, sure. Hopefully he's better now. He's learned. But bro, you should come up and own that. Like if you made a mistake in the past, and you've said some stupid stuff like that, you should say, hey man, I've said dumb things in the past, So anyway, these unaccountable people. Yeah. And so what? The stuff that you teach today, if it's found out to be not good or whatever, later you'll act like it never happened. That's the same thing. My stuff, I'm not saying that I'm the best because I'm not, but my stuff I have been developing over the course of years. So my tomorrow stuff will be based off of my past stuff. So I stand on my past. You know what I mean? So the stuff that I said to you guys, and if I was wrong about something, I will come out and tell you guys. Like, for example, defang the snake. Um, I had, there was a time where I did say, you know, when you do the force to force block, it's even better if you could do it on the hands. Yeah, in a way, result wise, it's even better. But if you try to do that, you're going to end up being too close to them, and it's not a good idea. And this is a new finding, or yeah, there's stuff like that I will come out and change. If I made a mistake and it needs to be changed, I will change it, and I will let you guys know. Because to me, that failure was an amazing failure because it took me to the success. Without that failure, I would not know. So to me, I hold it dear, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. Because of that, I'm now able to teach you guys something better. So I own up to it. I don't act like that never happened. Anyway, yeah, so people want to take out the blade as fast as possible. So they want to wave with this like that out the pocket. So out the pocket, it's immediately blade is out. They don't want to do, use this closed. And like I said, that sequence that I talked about in real life, every real life situation I've been in, I go through the sequence. This could be as simple as someone approaches me, right? And yeah, I've been approached many times, and that's how it usually starts off. And sometimes they catch me off guard, and they start off with a sales pitch or something. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm about to get mugged. Something's fishy. Something's not right here. I sense that. This is some kind of scam happening. So at that point, do I take out my knife and stab him in the neck? No, I don't do that. So there are steps before that. And people think that, if the person had the intent to kill me, and if I'm going from the lowest step and working my way up, it's too late. Everybody wants to think super desperately like that, everybody, but that's not how real life works. I mean, if they had the intent to kill me and they're already attacking me, there had to have been some red flags before that. And you cannot ignore those red flags. So, if I had upset someone that I shouldn't have, and this person is a dangerous human being, the next day I go to work and I know I'm going to see this person, then yeah, I should already, those are red flags. I should be prepared. But if I wasn't, and I ignored all the red flags, and then I said, hey, how's it going? Yeah, that person might stab me or cut me from behind or something and take me out. Yeah. But I ignored a bunch of red flags. So look, I think another huge problem is that people think that by going non-lethal, they feel like it's less effective, because this is lethal force. So this does more damage. Therefore, this is more effective. And that is the wrong logic. That is the wrong idea. Because if that's what you're going by, then why don't I walk around with a bazooka? Why don't I walk around with, like 2 long swords? I mean, it just, then it becomes like this. Yeah, okay, so you have a handgun. Well, I'm going to have a Desert Eagle. Oh, you're going to have an assault rifle. Okay, then I'm going to have something like a Uzi, a submachine gun, H and K, you know, or I mean, okay, so then you're gonna have an M16 with a shotgun. I mean, it becomes ridiculous like that, right? And once again, what is the percentage of needing any of that? So it's not about the more damage, the better. How much damage can you inflict? That's better. No, it's about using the right tool for the right situation. And that is what this is about. This is about using the right tool. You know, it's most situations can be dealt with this. In fact, this might even be overkill. Yeah, I mean this. Oh man, I yeah, this is that. I don't know how else to say. Kubotan on steroids for real. You know. So here, look, this is a Kubotan. And I don't know if this is the actual brand, but it's very close to that. This is metal, and yeah, this has some weight. This is solid. Yeah, I do not want to get hit by that, or even smack like that, right? But this, you can see that is going to be brutal. Yeah, and with the weight there. There. Look. Can you guys see? Yeah. See how much more concentrated? Yeah. Way more concentrated. Concentrated to the point where this is probably going to cut. You know, if you bam somebody like that, it's going to cut some skin. And who knows? I mean, this could... You're going to dent something. Yeah. Luckily, this is not reduced to only that kind of usage. Same with the Kubotan, but I mean, you know, you can go do compliance holds, right? And look, before you get into like some, whoa, man, that stuff just looks way too complex. If you know basic grappling, then this is going to enhance your grappling skills. Okay, so... You know, if it's one person, you know, put them up against the wall or go to the ground, it's one person. And if you're using this, I mean, just imagine like doing something as simple as a guillotine choke, you know, which is one of the high percentage moves. You could do a guillotine choke with the addition of this. It's just going to make it that much worse, that much more effective. It's going to take the fight out of them so fast when you use something like this. You know, I mean, this has the horns back here. You can hook into places, and then you're doing a normal guillotine with this. You can see this is going to be doing that while you just do a normal guillotine. So even if your guillotine's not really fully in, this will be in. You know. Or you could just even be like in a north-south position or you know, over sprawl on top of their turtle and just digging this in. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that complex. Just digging it into the muscle, you know. Because there are grinding moves that you can do, grind in, you know, because if they're turtled up, it's harder. If they're flat on the ground, it's much better, right? But if they're turtled up, they can get up, they can move around, you know, they can still kind of defend themselves. So you dig your elbow into their spine to flatten them out. Now, imagine this. It's much more powerful. You dig this in. It's much more powerful than the elbow, you know. So those are the kinds of usage you could do for compliance hold, you know. So then your jiu-jitsu doesn't have to be super fantastic. You don't have to be black belt level BJJ. With this, you could. It's a technique enhancer. It will enhance your skills, and that's why you know, this goes extremely well with the martial arts. But Anyway, I think I've talked long enough, and hopefully it's just that people think, that this knife is a joke. They like I said, if you know anything about the tactical industry, the tactical knife industry, historically, this idea, Professor Bram Frank has presented this idea with the Spyderco gunting, even before that, when it was still called the escalator. But he was there from the very beginning of that stuff, and he helped launch, like for example, Spyderco's MBC program, Marshall Blade Concepts, and things of that nature that revolutionized the tactical knives, that help, that it was like, yes, you need to train with this stuff. You can't just have the knife. The knife isn't just going to do the work for you. Training is important. That's why they made the MBC program. And that's why, of course, the training knife becomes so important, to have a good, realistic training knife that represents the actual tool you're going to be using. So, things of that nature was just revolutionary. And that has been there since the beginning of time. You don't think that, he thought about fast deployment. I feel more like the people that were more into how to make the tactical knife quick draw. I think, I hate to say it, but that is definitely more the 8th grade fantasy, where you are thinking about Wild Wild West. That person, myself, we're in a draw. That's a movie. That's fantasy, And for me, in my martial arts, for as long as I've been doing, is basically don't play the speed game. I want to rely on skill and strategy. I don't want to rely on my speed. And now at this age, now that I'm no longer a young person, to rely on speed it's something that I'm losing every day, So I'm getting slower and slower, and it just doesn't make sense to rely on speed. And even back then, when I was younger, I met plenty of people that were faster, more agile than I was. I was never a great athlete, so how do you beat someone like that? Well, you definitely don't play the speed game. So that's something that I learned a long time ago. I want to be technical. I want to be tactical and strategic. I want to beat them with my mind, And that means I have to pre-plan this stuff. I have to almost be a fortune teller, so when the situation happens, it falls into place, and I go just as I thought it would go, like that. So I'd rather play that game than the speed game. And this is not the speed game. However, if you really think about it from the speed game circumstance, this is faster because this will already be in your hand in a non-lethal force situation, because this is a non-lethal tool. When you have the blade come out, that's a lethal force situation. So you have to wait until you can confirm this is a lethal force situation. Remember, you don't want to guess, So you want to limit your assumptions as much as possible. What was that in Out for Justice 2, Steven Seagal movie? They said assumptions is the mother of all fuck-ups. So yeah, that's definitely true in many cases. So you want to make sure that you have a good solid program where you could go step by step and not just run into, is this the right time for me to drop the bomb? Is this green light or red light? And that's all you have is dropping the bomb. That's not a good idea, And because there's also been situations that I've been in that I could tell you in real life where I did have a knife or I did have a weapon, and I was like, I don't want to use this. But if I get attacked right now, it's already in my hand. So it's like I did this already, and I'm going, I don't want to use this. And, if they come at me, it's like, now I have to. If I didn't have this, I could control the situation better. But because I took this out, now it's almost like it's going to get involved, and I don't want that. So, yeah, that has happened to me more than once, where the weapon came out and I instantly regretted it. I was like, oh no, oh no, I hope they don't attack me. And really, at that point, I'm reduced to only running. And the bad thing about that is if you're reduced to only running and you can't run, or they caught up to you, then I'm going to end up using that. That's what's going to happen. We're going to be in an altercation. It's going to be ugly, and that's going to come into play, which I don't want. So you're going to go with this, use this, try to take care of the situation as best as you can. It's not happening. Your life's in danger, then boom, it was already in your hand to begin with. It doesn't take much to switch to this. So now I can do this. And even here, I don't recommend this into the eye. I don't recommend any of that, Yeah, friend of mine, not anymore, but back in the day, he was in the Marine Corps, and he said he was in a dangerous part of town, and a guy came up from behind, and I think it was grabbed him by the neck right here, like from behind, like they were doing a rear naked choke. So they came from behind, and they put their arm around his neck. So I guess if this was him, they did something like that. And he took out his knife. And he filleted the guy's arm. And a big old flap. And once he did that, the guy let go, and they both looked at each other like he was like with the knife going, what next? And the other guy, with his arm flapping down, and he was like, and I think he put it back and he ran. And that was it. Luckily, my buddy didn't, take out the blade and kill this guy. He could have, stabbed the guy in the groin. He could have, here. It was a fixed blade, by the way. But so he I think it was a fixed blade. Took out the blade like this. He could have sidestepped and stabbed back here. And that could have been right in the stomach, and it could have killed the guy. And luckily that's not what happened. So today's audience, today's people are obsessed with causing the most amount of damage because they have the error of thinking that the most amount of damage is the most effective. And that is not true. Okay? Using the right tool, the right situation. That's where it's at. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.